moving on to the next talk, we have Vinay Rajagopal. He's from Red Hat. Right? So he's going to talk to us about how organizations can take a three-staged approach to building a realistic, sustainable computing initiative. Right? So that's up to Vinay.
Thanks. You done? Thanks, Prakash. We'll try to save some time, I guess. Thanks, everyone. Can't expect great turnout when the arch rivals are playing a game of cricket on the stakes are the World Championship stakes. So can't expect, but thank you, each one of you guys, for joining us. I think you heard Nancy and Sanchita mention about everything under the sustainability aspects, but what I want to do with my presentation is to see how you guys, each one of you out here can implement some sort of a sustainability initiative at your organization. That's the whole idea of this presentation. What I plan to do over the course of the session is to introduce a couple of open source technologies, but we're not doing a deep dive on it. We will follow that up with, let's say, more meetups and so on and so forth, yeah? But the key takeaway, each one of you guys here, let's start it. Let's get this whole sustainability going. On that note, you probably heard, Nancy and Sanchita mentioned the numbers were 3%, 2%, and so on and so forth. I've got McKinsey's data out here that says when they did a survey in 2020, the overall carbon footprint emissions that we contributed as a part of the ICT sector was about 4%. And they predicted in 2025, we're going to double. We'll be somewhere close to 8%. Is that the reality? What's happened in the last few years? AI has become the core. Now, blockchain, very compute-intensive technologies, right? 5G is making edge a reality. What that means to all of us is we're extending the data center footprint all the way to the far edge. Now, have all of these been considered during the previous marketing data and so on and so forth? Maybe not. But what that means to us is technologies like AI, which requires to be always on, because your models are not going to be accurate if your data is skewed, right? Your AI models are as accurate as the data is, right? So keeping all of that together, I predict we're going to be probably more than 12%, or maybe 15%. Now, what that translates into each one of us here is that we all have a role to play to make this, planet green, in whatever sense, right? On that note, we understood the why part, but is it truly also a part of your CXO's agenda? Is it truly being looked upon by the leaders in your organization, whether it's a part of their strategies, is it part of their priority list? Yes. And we've seen a huge shift. COVID probably pushed a lot of envelopes for us, and if you see the data there, the couple of them that have never been on the top 3 list at least have shot up. There's a huge spike, huge uptick in ESG, right? Environmental, sustainable, and governance reporting. Health and sustainability became the top priority. Of course, it's the third in the row, but still the uptake has been 100%. And we've also seen a lot of risk management during COVID and workforce. What is that I can do to my, employees and so on and so forth, right? So yes, we see there's a huge impact of what we are doing to the planet Earth. And we also see that your leadership is also, particularly interested with these topics. So that gives you an answer, whether you want to start it right away or not, right? Now, Sanchita mentioned about it, right? You cannot shoot in the dark. Unless you monitor something, you'll not be able to measure it, and you'll not be able to course correct, right? And there's another survey that was ran, and it's about 85% of the corporates who are willing to, who are interested in getting started in terms of measuring their own carbon footprint. There's about 9% who thinks they already have something in place. And there's roughly about 6% who probably don't know what they're doing with sustainability. But having said that, how do I start it? Now, each one of us here are developers, SREs, part of the operations team, product engineering, platform engineering. How do we really start? How do I get this whole thing? Where do I start? What are those things that I have to consider as a part of my initiative towards sustainability? So if you look at the entire horizon, right, you have what is called the data center facility, which has all these transformers, backups, UPS. You can't afford to have a data center facility go down. So you have all that, power consumption, power backup related. That is absolutely important. And backed by a fuel tank, because you need some kind of fuel to ensure that these transformers and backups are operating, right? Now, these are the data center facilities. Now, if you move further, you see our IT aspects come into picture, right? Be it compute, be it network, or storage. And of course, across all of this, you have HVAC. Sanchita has mentioned the power usage effectiveness and things like that. I'm not going to go in detail, but the whole point is all of this contributes to energy consumption. Now, you have HVACs because the ambient temperature has to be maintained in the data center. Otherwise, that leads to wear and tear, that leads to failure of equipment and so on and so forth. And like I said, none of us can afford a data center facility to go down, right? Now, and the gentleman mentioned about load balancing, how important it is in the era of cloud native technologies and things like that. So you understood the whole horizon now, okay? So far, so good. How do I apply it? How do I start looking into starting an initiative, starting it right away, right? Now, what we did is kind of translated that into what are those sections, what are those categories that I can think about, and translate that into an approach, a very well-defined approach, so that I could then categorize each of these initiatives and go ahead and start my sustainability initiative, right? So you looked at, some level of hardware efficiency in terms of power consumption and so on and so forth. Now that's beyond what we can do, right? Now, if you look at other categories, right, it all kind of structures into our ability to measure from all those data center facilities in terms of what exactly is my power consumption, right? How many of those, volts, whatever the measurement, amperes, all of that put together, which Sanchita touched upon the Kirchhoff's law, right? That's the only thing that I remember from my engineering, at least. But the whole idea is the first approach. So if you look at a three-stage approach, the first approach is your ability to measure them. And now it's actually hybrid, because all the organizations wants the best of the both world. It's on-prem and it's cloud. It is just not one cloud these days. It's also multi-cloud, right? So that's your first layer. Now, on top of that is the sustainable software engineering practices. Now, how do I bring in some level of visibility so that I can know what are these various metrics, what is the power consumption data, then I build the dashboard, like other speakers mentioned about it, and then start measuring, start optimizing, and so on and so forth. Now, is it at that level? No. There's another approach that you can build on top of it. As a developer, you can look at some of the application-specific optimization, right? Can I look at some of the frameworks, which are probably optimized to the cloud-native era, which probably consumes, less memory footprint, less memory allocations, and so on and so forth. So that's how I look at it, the three-stage approach. So if you follow this, easy methodology, it's easy for you to get started on this. Okay, we kind of looked at all of that. The first open source technology that I would like to introduce to you guys is called Kepler. Kepler stands for Kubernetes Efficient Power Level Exporter. But what it does, it's also, I see Bala or someone is going to talk about eBPF. So it's all the same probes that we use. It kind of gives you an opportunity to expose a variety of metrics that you can then understand your energy consumption for your Kubernetes at the layer of namespace, pods, and nodes. So you have your distributed applications, which are running on those worker nodes, running as pods, and then on the nodes, right? So you get that namespace level metrics exposed through Kepler. That's the first one that I want to introduce. Now, how can you combine all of this together, irrespective of which footprint are you in, be it edge, private cloud, public cloud, on a physical hardware or a bare metal, or on a virtualization? You bring all those aspects together, be it Kubernetes or enterprise equivalent of Kubernetes like OpenShift and so on and so forth, combine all of that together and look at your reporting. You can also expose, Kepler gives you an opportunity to expose the data through Prometheus and put on a Grafana dashboard. So that's first open source technology. This is something you can apply at a platform layer. Good. But wait a minute, I'm a developer. What can I do? How can I contribute, my part of this whole sustainability, right? This is where I want to introduce you to another open source technology. You have the links there in the footnotes. Please feel free to make a note of it. Carcass is, cloud native microservices framework. Some of them probably would have started on Spring Boot frameworks and things like that. How many of them are developers here? Can you please raise your hands? Good. So you probably would have started on Spring Boot as one of those microservices framework, right? Carcass brings to you a very low memory footprint with the fastest boot time. All you have to, when you compile something, it doesn't have to go through the entire, it only compiles the delta, whether you run it on JVM or you run it on container. So Carcass is one framework that you can adopt and see how you're contributing from your code level towards the whole energy consumption aspects. That was the second one. So what does it translate into? The lower memory footprint, the smaller devices, as in terms of resources, leads to lesser usage of energy. Lesser usage of energy leads to lesser consumption and later, lesser emission of carbon, all these green gases, right? So saving time, saving money also leads into saving carbon footprint. So what are you actually doing? You're going back to your leadership, you're going back to your management and letting them know that you're not just doing your part for the sustainability aspects, but you're also saving a lot of money for the organization. So that should be something, should be very exciting for each of you guys to get that started. Now, the big question, should I run it cloud native? Should I run it on JVM? Doesn't matter. With Carcass, there's a challenge, right? We all face, whether it's the throughput or the latency or the power consumption, let's say on an edge footprint. How do I combine all of that? Carcass, again, plays a very important role. The best part is your code can run on JVM or be on containers. So that makes your life very, very easy. So it's not the JVM or the container, it's either or. Any of that is good enough. So that's open source technology number 2. We looked at Kepler, we looked at Carcass. The last one that I want to introduce is something called Cruise. We spoke about, Sanchita mentioned, even if you're not turning off your VMs or your resources, your compute resources, there's an amount of power that it is consuming, right? So it becomes very important for us to see, how do I size my application, for the container, right? How do I really size it? Because most of the sizing happens for that one Black Friday or a Diwali day where we're expecting a surge. And then if you go back and look at, I guess Sanchita had a very good data point there, 12% is the utilization. That's extremely low, right? Now, in the world of cloud native, the world of containers, the CNI and CSI aspects are very challenging, right? If it's just one Kubernetes cluster, I call it a paradise. The moment it becomes more than one, it's just not easy, right? So therefore, it becomes important for all of us to realize that one size doesn't fit all. We have to constantly learn, and ensure that we have some recommendations that we can pass on to our DevOps team to say, hey, this is the right sizing for my application. That's exactly what Cruise does. In level of CPU and memory request, what should be the limit value? Now, that's open source technology number 3 introduced. So all of this 3 translates into those 3-staged approach that I spoke about. The hybrid infra, the platform, and the application itself. Now, again, I want to go back. Anything that you optimize from a resource consumption also saves money, also improves application performance, also enhances the customer experience. So they're all, they're all interlinked, they're all connected. So please ensure that you bring this up. Very easy to start right away. You know all of the technologies that we spoke about. Please get started. Now, where do I get started? In case you want to play around and then try to build a project as an initiative, whatever within your organization. We have a small developer sandbox, absolutely free. You can get started there. Play around, do whatever you want, learn it, and then go implement it in your organizations. And that note, we all have a part to play. So look forward to any questions or during networking where we could see how we could get this started. Any questions? I'm done. Any questions? Otherwise, we've got our coffee, tea break, I guess. All good? Suraj, you want to take over?
Thank you, Vinay.